Greetings and welcome to another Lessons with Odin. Today I have for you a simple earring pattern, one that I have dubbed Heraldic Daisies. Because it kind of looks like a flower and it kind of looks like a shield. And I don't even know. So, I made this pair in reds and blacks for myself because that is my favorite thing ever. And I also made this lovely blue pair for a trade in my epic earring swap in celebration of 500 subscribers. I think I still have some spaces left in that. I'm not sure by the time I post this how much time I've got. So, yeah. I'll leave a link in the description below or in a annotation over here somewhere if there are spaces left. So, okay, the materials you will need for this are 2 6mm beads. I'm using rounds. I haven't tried this in Bicones yet, but I'm probably going to. 12 3mm beads. I'm using rounds this time just to mix it up. But the other one, this one uses Bicones instead. 12 4mm Bicones. It could probably work in rounds too, I just haven't tried it, so I'm not promising anything. Some SuperDuos. I didn't bother counting them. You'll just need some SuperDuos. Some O beads. I haven't done a lot with that, but I am loving them. O beads. 2 dangly drop bits. I'm using some Briolettes for this pair, but I used top drill Bicones for these, and the other pair. And finally, 2 ear wires and needle and thread. And some size 15 seed beads, which I totally forgot to mention. Alright, so let's get started. The first thing we are going to do is take one of our 6mm beads. We're going to wait for the camera to focus. There we go. We're going to pass our needle through one side, leaving a 6-inch tail or something, just enough for you to work with. We're not actually going to be using it. Okay, and after we've done that, we are going to pick up one size 15, one SuperDuo, one 3mm, one SuperDuo, another 3mm, one SuperDuo, and one size 15. In that order. Then what we're going to do is we're going to pass it back through our 6mm bead, so we end up with a little jaunty bit wrapping the bead. Okay, going to do the same thing again. I'm going to add one size 15, one SuperDuo, one 3mm, one SuperDuo, one 3mm, one SuperDuo, one size 15. Like that. We are going to pass through again. So that we end up with the beads wrapping over both sides. Now, since I'm using rounds, the sticky outy bits are going to be a bit more sticky outy. Whereas you can kind of tell the difference with the Bicones, how it's kind of stuck in place a little bit tighter. You can see the Bicones wrapping the pearl quite a bit tighter. So, results may vary depending on what bead shape you use. After that, we're going to pick a side and we're going to move through each bead until we reach the other side. So we're going to start doing that. Okay, so now that your tail and your working ends are on the same side of the bead, what we're going to do is just simply tie an overhand knot in order to secure the tail in place. Now after that, we won't be needing the tail anymore, so it's up to you whether or not you want to go ahead and do a couple of knots in other places and clip it short, or just let it hang around until you're finished with your earring. Now your knot should be pressed up against a size 15 seed bead. This one right here. So what we're going to do is pass through the size 15 and the size, and the SuperDuo. Like that. We're going to be changing direction by passing through the top hole of the SuperDuo bead. Alright. Like that. Now we're going to add on 115, 1 4mm, and 115. Like that. And we're going to pass through the top hole of the next SuperDuo bead over. Like that. So those beads end up in between two SuperDuos. Alright. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add 1 4mm and 1 O bead. Like that. We are going to pass through the next SuperDuo bead. End up with that. Now we're going to add 1 O bead and 1 4mm. In that order. And we're going to pass to the next top hole of the next SuperDuo bead. Alright. So we end up with that. Now, we're going to add 1 size 15, 1 4mm, 1 size 15, pass through the top hole of the next SuperDuo bead over. Like that. Okay. And we're going to add 1 4mm and 1 O bead. And pass to the next top hole of the next SuperDuo bead. And for our last round, we are going to add 1 O bead and 1 4mm bead. Like that. Pass through the last SuperDuo bead. And you end up with something like that. Alright. Now what we need to do is we're basically done with this round, but we need to add little details at the points. So we're going to take our thread and move down in between the O beads. We're going to add on 115, 1 SuperDuo, 115, and pass through the next O bead. And since I'm there already, I'll pass through the next 4mm. So you end up with a little point like that. Now we're going to move over to the next set of O beads. Now I'm going to add 1 size 15, 1 SuperDuo, and 1 size 15. Okay. Move through the next O bead. And we're going to move all the way over to the next point. Again, this kind of adds security because otherwise this bit's gonna like flop and woggle around a lot. So I'm gonna move all the way over to this before I add my next steps. So I'm going to pass until I'm through the bottom hole of the SuperDuo bead. I'm going to change direction by moving through the top hole of the SuperDuo bead. Okay? Now I'm going to add the earring finding. Before I do that, I'm going to set it up. Now, this will be kind of dependent on what your position of your earring is. Currently, I want it to hang this way, so it is basically the earring hangs out on this side over here. But in order to do that, this loop needs to be moved over. So all I'm going to do is take a pair of pliers and rotate it so that it's at a 90-degree angle. Like that. Then I'm going to open it up and slide on one of my O beads. You can also do this with a small 4mm closed jump ring. This is just so that I've had bad experiences with using thread on regular ear wires. They always fall off nonstop. So this is kind of a way to make sure that the earring does not fall off. And I just used O beads because, you know, I ran out of my tiny jump rings, so I'm using this instead. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add on 2 of our size 15 beads, or 3. It kind of depends on what you want, but guess and test, I guess. So we're going to slide on 2 size 15 seed beads for now, our O bead with the earring attached to it, and another 2 size 15 seed beads. So that's what we've got. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to wrap around and form a loop by passing through the opposite direction of the top hole in our seed bead. So we end up with that. Okay. Now I'm going to reinforce this twice by passing through all of these beads again. So basically, especially because this is like a point of where most of the gravity yanks on the work. So I just like to add a bunch of secure safeguards and reinforce my piece. And then I will end up at the top hole of my SuperDuo bead again. Now I need to pass through to the other side. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to move to the bottom hole of the SuperDuo bead and continue on to the next point. Okay, so now I'm going to do pretty much the same thing. I'm ending up at the bottom hole of my SuperDuo bead. So I'm going to pass through that. Then I'm going to change direction and go through the top hole of the SuperDuo bead. Like that. And that is my tail. Okay, so once we've done that, we're going to start adding our dangly bits. And this is a little complicated, but I have faith that you guys can work through it. So, we're going to start off by adding 1 3mm bead and 1 SuperDuo bead. Okay? We're going to push this all the way down to the bottom so that everything is lined up, kind of like that. Okay? Then what we're going to do is we're going to go up through the top hole of the SuperDuo bead. So our thread ends up like that. And we're going to add on 1 O bead and 1 more SuperDuo bead. Okay? Then we're going to push that all the way down. So we end up with that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to pass our needle through the bottom hole of that same SuperDuo. Like that. Pull it through. So we end up with this weird clusterfuck right here. Okay. Then finally we're going to add our 3mm bead and go through the top hole of the point of the beading project. So we end up with a little circle hanging out. Underneath our flower bits. Now we're going to reinforce this once more because we're going to have a heavy bead hanging underneath it, so it's going to want some security there as well. So we're just going to pass through everything once more. And it also helps your tension as well to make sure everything is stuck right where it needs to be. Like that. Now, we're going to move up to the O bead. So, move up to the SuperDuo, move through the top hole of the SuperDuo, and through the O bead. And that's where our thread should end up. Now we're going to take either 2, 3, or 4 of our size 15 seed beads. This really depends on how big your drop is. I'm going to put 3 because my drop has a longer neck. But we're going to put on 3 seed beads, our drop bead, and 3 seed beads. Like that. We're going to form a loop and pass in the opposite direction of our O bead. So we're basically anchoring it to the O bead. Like that. And our drop looks like that. Okay, so now we've essentially almost finished our piece. So what we're going to do from here is going to reinforce by passing through all of these beads again 2 more times. Alright, now once we've done that, we are going to move over to back to the main body of the earring. So what we're going to do is we're going to travel from here down over through this main SuperDuo once more. This is where our thread is coming out of. Now we're going to move down through the bottom hole of the SuperDuo, and we're going to pass through a few more beads. That's essentially how you finished the piece, but now what we're going to do is basically, in order to get a bit more security, we're going to reinforce the outer beads again, and then tie off some knots. In order to do that, we're just going to do a simple half hitch knot. We're going to go under the threads, pull our thread through until we make a loop, pass our needle through that loop, not get it caught in the rest of the work, and pull tight. And pass up through a couple more beads, and do the same thing. Go do a half hitch knot by putting your needle underneath the threads of the work until we form a loop. Pass your needle through that loop and pull tight. Do a few more beads and then you can cut your piece short. Do the same thing for the tail, but I'm not going to bother because I already have an overhand knot there and I am lazy. So I'm just going to clip the tail end. There we go. And there you have it. Your very own heraldic daisy to put on a bunch of shields and stuff. I don't know. Anyway, this was a lot of fun to do because it was just me basically throwing crap together. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. And in any case, if you guys decide to make this, please let me know and show me some pictures because I'd love to see what you guys do. You can even submit them on my business page at Facebook, Odin's Bead Hall. And yeah, if there are any other tutorials you would like me to do for you guys, please let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.